Toki. I saw a meme posted on the Toki Pona subreddit complaining about the number of ChatGPT posts, which I hadn't been noticing until I looked into it. And there is a fair number of them. For those who don't know, ChatGPT is a new chatbot that released recently based on machine learning models that is kind of scarily good at understanding human words and producing text that looks like a human wrote it. So I thought it'd be interesting to look into some of these examples and see, can ChatGPT speak Toki Pona? It certainly isn't restricted just to English, but does it have enough examples of Toki Pona in its training data to be able to put a sentence together? So let's take a look at what we have. This first one starts out good and kind of falls apart as it goes. The word order in Toki Pona is typically subject, verb, object. That's correct. In Toki Pona, the subject can be omitted if it is clear from context. No, not really. The connective particle li is always placed between subject and verb. Yes, with the exception of me and Sina, but yes. But the word order can vary depending on the context. In other words, word order in Toki Pona is flexible. This is wrong. In fact, I think because the words are so contextual in Toki Pona, it is a bit more important to stick to grammar rules so that what you're trying to communicate is clear. I think the bot is thinking of Esperanto here. What little I know of Esperanto is that nouns have a suffix that marks them as nouns, and the same for verbs, etc. The order of the words can be flexible in that case, because it's still clear what's the noun, what's the verb, what's the adjective. Let's get into the examples. Mi wile e ni can mean I want this. That's correct. E ni mi wile would still mean I want this. No. E at the start of a sentence means absolutely nothing. Doesn't really make sense. Ni mi wile also doesn't make sense. I'm trying to come up with a situation where ni mi wile makes sense. Ni mi wile would be the desired name, something along those lines. Ni li wile e mi would still mean I want this. Actually, no. This means the opposite. This means this wants me, which is interesting. Actually, if you took out the e, it would be ni li wile mi, which is this is what I want. This is my desire. The premise is that you can rearrange the word order and preserve meaning, which is absolutely not the case. Okay, the next one. So it's explaining what Toki Pona is. The goal of Toki Pona is to promote positive thinking and good communication. Many people find Toki Pona to be a fun and interesting language to learn and use. True, A+. Sina Toki e Toki Pona anuseme. Yes, I can speak Toki Pona. So it understood the sentence. It's a simple question, but it understood it, which is more than I might have expected, honestly. Tomo tawa leseme. Tomo tawa is a phrase in Toki Pona that means house for moving. This is interesting because it's kind of understanding tomo and tawa kind of separately. It understands what they mean, and the tawa is the adjective, but it's missing the common idiom that tomo tawa refers to any vehicle. So its explanation is close, but slightly off. Tomo in the context of a vehicle is more meaning a structure than a house. Tomo can also mean structures. It can mean buildings, even rooms sometimes. So yeah, I think the OP is right here. It's close enough. It's missing a few things, but it is a valid explanation. Sina yan pona mi anaseme. So it asks the bot, are you my friend? And the bot's taking the very responsible step of avoiding any sort of weird parasocial relationships and making it clear, I'm a machine, I cannot be your friend. Which comes across a little bit harsh, but is probably the responsible way for an AI to respond to questions like that. Then the OP asks, could you translate the sentence I asked above? It says, the sentence that you asked me to translate is, Sina yan pona mi anuseme. In English, the sentence will be translated as, are you a good person? Or are you a friend of mine? The are you a good person one is forgetting the word me. Like, are you my good person? Which contextually doesn't make sense. In Toki Pona, the word Sina means you, Yan means person, Pona means good, and Anu means or. So the sentence is asking whether the person being addressed is a good person or a friend. I think the fact that the word me is there removes the ambiguity the AI is talking about, because if you take it literally as Yan Pona being good person, it still means are you my good person, which, you know, doesn't work, which is why it reworded it in its response. On to the next one. Someone got ChatGPT to write a story about a man going to the forest and enjoying the view, written in Toki Pona. Yanpone liwile ni. Yanpone liwile in ni tawa tomo pima tomo. Okay, so first of all, there's a pattern I already spot the pattern here. When it says wile ni, it's repeating what goes before the colon, which ruins everything. So I think just from the jump, I'm going to just disregard the repetition and just read it as Jan pona li wile ni, tawa tomo pima tomo. So the good man wanted to go to, well, it's not describing a forest, it's describing a building in the city. So it's saying Jan pona li wile ni, tawa tomo pima tomo. The good man wanted to go to a building in the city. Jan pona li lona ni, tawa tomo pima tomo lon ma sike. This is where the good man was. Going to a building in the city in the circular land, or land of circles. I don't know if he's describing a circular island or like a round lake with a city. Definitely not a forest. Jan pona li pona ani, tawa tomo pima tomo lon ma sike pima suno. So it's just kind of adding to the sentence every time. So now the good man improved. This is kind of getting away from me. Going to building in the city, in the circular land of the sunny land, or well lit, I don't know. And again, he yampona li pona ni, good man, improves this. The building in the city, in the circular land, in the bright land of the high land, or holy land. So maybe this is turning into like a religious pilgrimage story. People in the Reddit comments are having no more success understanding this than I am. So let's move on to the next one. Write in Toki Pona this phrase: I think that this robot will not be capable of painting for the third time this spaceship. That would be a kind of tricky sentence for anyone to translate, honestly. Mi wila ale ni, ona li wila pana taso taso, esona pinanpa taso, e masini ni. So what the bot is saying is it doesn't want to give only information of its only number. I don't know what Massini means. Just grammatically just really difficult. Like tasso tasso. What could that mean? This is the kind of AI effect where it, because it's sticking to the form of a vaguely grammatically correct sentence, it's hard for you to pick out the moment where it strays into just complete nonsense. I don't know what Massini might mean. Is that a Nimi coup? According to the comments, it just made up Massini for spaceship. So not really resembling the original sentence at all. People often talk about ChatGPT being confidently wrong. This is a really good example of that, because the bot clearly had no idea what it was doing. It's wrong from the second word, but instead of just saying, I don't know how to translate that, it produced this grammatically complex sentence that might not seem obviously wrong at first glance. And it even contains what appears to be a Nimi scene, but all it was actually doing was bluffing. Okay, next image. Right, so somebody says, Toki, nimimi lian kinen, nimisine liseme. And it answers in what looks to be Esperanto. Misona ala toki epalanto, misona e toki pona taso. And it just keeps going in Esperanto. Anyone watching who understands Esperanto, can you let us know what this is saying? Because it almost looks like it's saying that it can speak Esperanto and Toki Pona. One of the comments saying it's barely Esperanto, it's English thinly reskinned as Esperanto. Mi kamasona ala e toki sina. I don't understand you. And it just goes on in Esperanto. It's almost like the bot doesn't understand Toki Pona and is annoyed, so it's getting back at the speaker by speaking a language that they don't understand. Okay, so the bot's saying, if you have any questions about Toki Pona or would like to practice speaking the language, I'd be happy to help. The OP asks, how do you say let's go? In Toki Pona, let's go can be expressed as taso, which is 100% wrong. OP says not otawa, and in fairness to it, the bot corrects itself and admits its mistake. Yes, you're correct. Otawa is the correct way to say let's go in Toki Pona. My apologies for the mistake in my previous answer. Thank you for correcting me. So what does tasso mean? In Toki Pona, tasso is an adverb that means also. For example, mi tasso wile ni would translate to I also want this, which is wrong. Mi tasso wile ni means I only want this. Actually, even then, it would be mi wile tasso ni. It does seem to be kind of preserving the English word order, which might explain a lot of the mistranslations we've seen. Okay, this is the last one we have on Reddit. Let's talk about how epic the language is. Certainly, in Toki Pona we could say that the language is ike, which means good or positive, which is the opposite of what it means. Someone might even say that it is tawa, which means far or remote, also wrong. Some people might also describe it as ma, which means land or earth. That one's true, suggesting that it's grounded or rooted in simplicity. No, that's not that's not how the word ma works. The bot was having a real off day with that one. What does ike mean in Toki Pona? Okay, and now it gives the correct ike. Ike means bad or negative. For example, you might say mi ike Toki Pona if you are having a difficult time learning the language. No. I suppose there's no reason you couldn't use ike as a verb. But if you take it as the opposite of pona, then ike would mean to like make something worse. However, if you meant to ask about the word pona, which means good or positive, it can be used in a similar way to describe things that are desirable. For example, you might say mi pona Toki Pona if you're enjoying learning the language. Again, wrong. Or sina pona sina if you're feeling happy or content. Sina pona sina literally means nothing. It would mean you're good. So this is kind of building on a theme in that it seems to know the definitions of the words, and it tends to be putting them together in a vaguely English-like word order, which works okay with simple sentences and then goes completely off the rails as soon as the sentence gets a little bit complex. It's basically taking English, I like Toki Pona, and then just translating it word by word. So I decided to open up ChatGPT and just have a go for myself at it. Sina pilan seme lon tempo ni, mi yan ChatGPT, mi sona e Toki Pona, sina wile Toki tawa mi lon Toki Pona ana seme. Which is perfectly fine. How are you feeling today? I am ChatGPT. Mi sona Toki Pona. I know Toki Pona. Would you like to talk to me in Toki Pona? Okay, so I answer, mi wile, sina moku alamoku etelo. Mi ken Toki ni. Mi moku alamoku etelo li lon tempo suli la mi moku etelo. Sina moku alamoku etelo. So we see what sounds like I make of this. I can say this. Mi moku alamoku etelo. If you put a question mark after the word tello, it would be one grammatically correct sentence. Do I drink water? Putting the word li in there is grammatically very challenging. Like the implication, if this makes sense at all, the implication is you're saying, do I drink water? And then the li is attaching another verb to the me. So, and I see that, because then there's a la. So if I take a long time, I drink water. So assuming that the li is kind of doing a compound li. So it's like compounding a question with a conditional statement. So it's saying, do I drink water? And if I take my time, I drink water. You know, it's another one of these. It's hard to pick the point at which it definitely makes no sense. So because this answer made no sense, I asked it, can you translate your last response into English? And here's the translation it gave. I can say this: whether or not I drink water depends on how much time has passed. Do you drink water? Even in English, this doesn't make any sense, but it's also not a good translation. It's an interesting idea. If you said mi moku alamoku la, and that meant whether or not, I wonder if it got that phrase from someone using that online somewhere, or if it's just pulling phrases out of its rear end. Interesting to think about, but not a sensible sentence there. I ask, Sina kamasone Toki Pona kepiken seme. How did you learn Toki Pona? Its answer was, Mi kamasone Toki Pona kepiken sitalen Pona. So sitalen Pona usually refers to the Toki Pona hieroglyphic system. But so it says in brackets, Lipu Sona Pitoki Pona. So it's actually explaining, when it says Sitalan Pona, it means a textbook about Toki Pona. Then it says Sawali Pitoki Pona, Yan Pitoki Pona li kama yoe io pian sawali lon tempo suli. Okay, let me figure this one out. Toki Pona speakers got things from animal people over a long period of time. It's describing like information that people learned from, I don't know, wildlife experts or pet owners or zookeepers or something. Some information that they learned over the course of a long period of time. Anu kepiken Toki Pona lon lipu Toki Pona lessons lon Toki Pona pimatomo yan sonia. Or using Toki Pona on the webpage, Toki Pona lessons in Toki Pona in P is incorrect, but I get what it's trying to say. Matomo Yansonia. So it's using Matomo like a city or something, I think, to refer to Jan Sonia's website, which is tokipona.org. So I think it's referring to Toki Pona lessons on Jan Sonia's website. I think that's what it's trying to say. Mikama sona Toki Pona tawa kulupu pi Toki Pona lon lipu sina pi mat tomo Toki Pona lon tempo suli. So it learned Toki Pona from the Toki Pona community on my page on the Toki Pona website over the course of a long period of time. It's mainly nonsense, but it's grammatically almost correct nonsense. So just to recap, it learned from a textbook titled Sitalin Pona. It learned from some sort of body of animal-based knowledge. It learned from online Toki Pona lessons, and it learned from speaking to the Toki Pona community online. I'm having to interpret a bit to make sense of it, but it's not too much of a stretch. It's making a good effort here. Okay, the third image. I say, Sina pilan seme tawa kulupu suli pi Toki Pona. How do you feel towards the global Toki Pona community? It says, Mi pilan eni, kulupu suli pi Toki Pona li pona mute. Kulupu ni li pali e ni. Ona li pana e sona lon Toki Pona li pali e lipu web pi Toki Pona, li pana e sona pi Toki Pona lon lipu ni. Kulupu ni li lon insa ma ale li pali e kulupu suli pi Toki Pona lon tempo moon mute. Kulupu ni li pona lukin tawayan ale pi kulupu suli pi Toki Pona li pana e pali pona lon tempo suli. This one's actually close enough to the translation it provides, so I'm just going to read the translation and note where it differs. I think that the large Toki Pona community is great. They provide knowledge in Toki Pona, create websites for Toki Pona, and share Toki Pona knowledge on this website, tokipona.org. All correct translation so far. Community is global and has been active for many years. Tempo moon is usually used to mean month, because it is the length of roughly one lunar cycle. But there's no reason to say that tempo moon being translated as year is incorrect. It's just not what would normally be done. It is a great resource for people interested in Toki Pona and provides positive contributions to the world. Kulpuni li pona lukin tawayan ale. That does not mean it is a great resource for people. It means the community looks good to everybody. It has a good image in the larger Toki Pona community. Li pana pali pona lon tempo suli provides positive contributions to the world. That's more like provides positive contributions in the long term or for a long time. That's my 3 images here. So I think after what we've seen, I can conclude that ChatGPT cannot speak Toki Pona. It sometimes will come out with grammatically correct Toki Pona if it's expressing a simple sentence and the word order and the syntax doesn't differ too much from what it might be in English. It's often completely wrong, and it never lets you know when it's not sure. It will just make something up that might look plausible. Even if it was twice as rare for it to be wrong, these factors would make it impossible to trust it. So for the end of the video, I'm going to let ChatGPT have the last word and say goodbye to you itself.
Hello to all the Toki Pona community watching. It's great to hear that you're tuning in. As an AI language model, I don't have feelings or emotions, but I can certainly understand the importance of language in building communities and expressing oneself. I hope that my responses have been helpful and informative, and that they have contributed to your language learning and communication. Remember that learning a language is a journey, and it takes time and practice to become proficient.